Have you ever used a mantra to help you with mental toughness or confidence with your running? Now, a lot of runners haven't. I'm actually surprised when I talk to runners and they haven't used mantras in both their training and in their racing. Now, a mantra is simply an example of a personal affirmation. It's a word or a phrase that you repeat to yourself when something gets very difficult, so that you can increase your mental toughness and help yourself push forward. Now, there's a lot of mantras that I've used over the years to help me with my own personal mental toughness when I'm out there on the race course. Because it doesn't matter who you are, racing is hard. Even workouts are really hard. And if we don't give ourselves every advantage, especially psychologically, then we are putting ourselves at a disadvantage. So what I want to do in this video today is talk about 3 of my personal mantras that I used in the past with great effect. And even though I'm certainly giving you full permission to steal these mantras and use them for yourself if they work for you, I want to be clear that mantras are deeply personal. These are not called personal affirmations for nothing. They have to be personal. They have to mean something to you. And you'll see in these example stories that I share with you just how personal these are to me. The first mantra that I ever used was during the first couple months of my running career when I started running cross country in high school. I was a freshman on the team, and we started using the word grimace as our team chant before our cross country races. Now, why is this word grimace powerful and also personally meaningful to me? Well, one of our team dinners we had, we went out, we got some pizza, got a carbo load before those cross-country races, and then we went to a McDonald's. Now, we didn't go there to eat. The upperclassmen actually went in and stole a life-size cardboard cutout of the character Grimace, that huge purple monster that I don't even know what he does. Does he steal the hamburgers or not? I'm not sure. But we had this huge cardboard cutout of Grimace in our locker room for almost the entire season. And so by chanting Grimace at the beginning of races, it was both a fun nod to our scandalous theft of this Grimace character, but it also reminded us that racing was hard. It reminded us that we needed to grimace through the very real but expected race pain that we were about to experience. And so this one was one of the first mantras that I ever used. It has a deeply personal meaning to me. It puts a smile on my face, but it also allows me to think in a more mentally tough way about the race that I'm about to run. So if you have a story that's somewhat similar to this is kind of a weird story, then I encourage you to use it to your advantage. If you have a word or a phrase that is both funny, but then also reminds you of the difficulty of racing, then that's going to put you in a good mental position before your next hard effort. Now, fast forward a couple years, still cross-country season. Now I'm a junior on the team, and my coach started to use a phrase with us. And this was a phrase that started out as being a question that my coach would pose to us during a race, but soon evolved into a mantra that I would ask myself. And now what my coach did was pretty genius. He would stand maybe a mile or half a mile from the finish of a 5K cross-country race, and as you were running by, he would look you in the eye and he would say, "Jason, it's time to make a decision. What do you want to do?" It's very unnerving to have your coach yell a very serious question like that, and to put it in very clear, simple, black and white terms. In a race, you do have a decision to make. You have the decision ahead of you to settle and just hope that the finish line gets to you soon, or to push, to hammer, and to go big, to reel in that competitor, to rein them in, and to give that race everything you have. And that is what my coach was asking us. Have you made a decision on what you're about to do right now? Because there's only 2 options. You can give up, you can settle, you can hold on a little bit and just coast to the finish line, or you can dig. And asking myself, what are you going to do is a really powerful way for me to just plainly make that decision in a race. When I put it in binary terms, you're either going to push or you're not. That makes it much simpler for me to make that decision because I'm not distracted by all the things that you can be distracted in a race. Things like, oh, my splits weren't exactly perfect, or I thought I'd be feeling a little bit better at this point, and all those negative thoughts that creep into your head when running becomes difficult. So the next time you're in a tough race situation, ask yourself, it's time to make a decision. What am I going to do? And I think that more often than not, you'll make the right decision. The other personal affirmation that was very powerful for me was when I was running my second marathon. Now, if you guys know my story, you know that I ran my first marathon back in 2008, and it didn't go that well. I ran the New York City Marathon in 2:44, and I just had a kind of a terrible experience. And afterwards, I didn't run another marathon for 3 years. The event legitimately frightened me a little bit, and I was scared to have another go at the 26.2 mile distance. And so part of that anxiety needed to be addressed my second race. Now, the training that I did for my second marathon, I think was much better. I really took fueling more seriously, but the mental game is not something that I think we should ignore, because this was the first marathon where I needed to have a formal mantra in my mind for different parts of the race. And I want to talk about the mantra that I used for the first 20 miles of my PR marathon in 2011. This was the Philadelphia Marathon. I ended up running 2:39:32. I met my goal of breaking the 2:40 mark. Really excited. And one of the reasons why I was able to do this is because I really paced myself incredibly well for the race. I think I only had 1 mile that was a little bit too rich. And one of the ways that I did that, to not only keep my pacing in line, but also to rein in that anxiety. Because, for about 2 hours, I was a nervous wreck. For me, it was like 2 hours of being a little bored and then the hardest 10K of my life. So that first 20 miles is really critical. And I found that psychologically, I was extraordinarily distracted. I was getting anxious. I was worrying about too many things. And so the mantra that I used to keep my head on right, to stay calm, and to really focus on methodical execution of my pacing plan was the word relax. Just relax. That's what I said to myself probably 3 times a mile, sometimes way more than that, for the first 20 miles of the 2011 Philadelphia Marathon. I simply wanted to relax. Now, this mantra can be very helpful in longer races where you have this period where you just need to endure and execute whatever race plan that you have. Now, if you're racing something as short as, say, like the 800 or the 1500, you probably don't want to tell yourself to relax. But in long races, and especially races that might psychologically intimidate you, like the marathon did for me my second time at the distance, this can be a very powerful mantra. This personal affirmation will calm you down. It will reduce your intensity level so that you're not super anxious before the race and you are thinking only about productive thoughts. Like, okay, what is my next split? I'm thinking about the things that are productive rather than letting my anxiety run free. So if this mantra is helpful for you, then I'm really glad about that. And I hope that you use it in some of your long races, but also your long runs. Just tell yourself to relax. I think it's quite effective. So like I mentioned earlier, mantras are uniquely personal. These mantras that I just shared with you, you can tell are very deeply personal to me. There's a story behind that grimace mantra that we used when I was in high school. One of the mantras is an old phrase that my coach used to say to us when we were racing. And then finally, that relax mantra is very specific to not only the marathon, but my personal anxiety that I had about my second attempt at the distance. So do I think these mantras are going to work for you? I'm not sure. I hope that maybe you'll try them, maybe that you'll experiment for yourself and find what works for you. Because that's really what this is all about. Finding that word or phrase that lights you up on the inside, that gives you power, that gives you confidence. Now, I have created a bank of 10 of my other favorite mantras and personal affirmations that you can get at the link either under this video. There'll be a card around here too. Now, the thing I want you to remember about this list of mantras is it's kind of like a buffet. You do not have to use all of them. You can sample and, again, experiment. Find what works for you. And what I like about this list, what I've done for you is I included a short note about when this mantra is particularly helpful for you. So if you're not sure when to use the mantra, because some mantras are better in some situations than others, then I've included that information too. So I hope you use this to your advantage, and remember that the brain is just like your body. It needs training too, and I hope that you take the mental side of running just as importantly as you take the physical side.